Decolonisation, according to our liberal overlords, is supposed to mean the removal of inequality, racism and bigotry from our culture. Yet anybody who's been around a while and actually looked into this stuff can see it's just essentially colonisation via another ideology and power structure. That's not hard to see when you have some experience in life, are connected to your culture and see how human nature really works. That's exactly why young people often don't see the modern brainwashing. That's why leftism especially often goes for young people. They know the revolutionary rhetoric fits very well with the utopian ideology of youngsters. This is why you get figures such as this. This is a decolonisation activist who believes we have to quote-unquote decolonise the British school curriculum by removing works by white and European males. Now, just before I get into this, I don't blame this young girl for having these opinions. She's just been brainwashed and is actually looking out for the interests of her own identity and culture by imbibing leftist ideology.
It isn't as simple as just reading a few Maya Angelou poems during Black History Month. We have to fully incorporate the work and ideas of people of colour into each aspect of the curriculum, by rethinking the very foundations of our education system to a point where it doesn't feel performative, but provides beneficial insight.
Beneficial insight for who? She doesn't mean the British people, in British culture, in Britain. She means leftist ideology for the world.
For example, at Nottingham Girls High School, we've refined the English curriculum to provide students with a more representative approach to the literature they study. We've replaced controversial books by white male authors, such as Of Mice and Men and The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, with pieces of literature that celebrate a diverse array of authors and themes.
So gone are the works which are the cultural coordinates and underpinning values of Western culture, and here are works because they're diverse.
We've also changed the language we use when teaching. Instead of referring to specific poems as poetry from other cultures, the module has been renamed to Powerful Voices, so as to avoid othering certain cultures and students, and to eventually break down the Eurocentric view on literature.
But you're in Europe. Henceforth, it's normal for European literature to have prominence, and by definition, literature from other countries is from other countries, hence it is other. And just because they're foreign doesn't mean they're powerful voices, quote-unquote. That's just marketing spin for leftist ideology to supplant other cultures above Western culture.
However, change needs to be made on a wider national scale to provide students across the country with
mass leftist brainwashing and a demonisation of English and European culture.
A more rounded view of the society we live in.
So more enforced state multiculturalism then?
When we learn about British history, we'd also learn about the realities of people living under the British Empire.
Like how the Islamic slave trade was bigger than the transatlantic one and lasted far longer and killed more people. But somehow I think she won't want to include that.
There's a famous quote by George Santayana, which I imagine many of you will know. Me quoting a white European man is, in a way, ironic.
No, it's not, because white European men have written some of the finest literature and philosophy in human history. That's not hateful or bigoted, it's just a fact. And ironically, by trying to cancel those voices, you're going to miss out on a lot of the core knowledge which has built the modern world. But we have the mother of all ironies to come next.
I struggled to find an equally popular and relevant quote by, for example, a woman of colour, showing how our views on history are dominated by a specific demographic of people. Anyway, it's those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Now, there are so many ironies which exemplify this girl has no idea what she's talking about here. I'm not quite sure where to begin. Let's start with the idea that literature and history is dominated by white Europeans simply because they're just oppressing other people. The reason they're so overrepresented is because they largely created the modern world. Secondly, the man she's quoting, a George Santayana, did not use that quote in the context of white Europeans ruling history. She is just making that up as a total sophistry to manipulate young minds. Let's see what George Santayana said, I don't know, about the English people maybe. Quote, instinctively, the Englishman is no missionary, no conqueror. He prefers the country to the town and home to foreign parts. He is rather glad and relieved if only natives will remain natives and strangers strangers, and a at a comfortable distance from himself, yet outwardly he is most hospitable and accepts almost anybody for the time being. He travels and conquers without a settled design because he has the instincts of exploration. His adventures are all external, his English weather in his heart wherever he goes, and it becomes a cool spot in the desert and a steady and sane oracle amongst all the deliriums of mankind. Never since the heroic days of Greece has the world had such a sweet, just, boyish master. It will be a black day for the human race when scientific blackguards, conspirators, churls and fanatics manage to supplant him. This girl is simply pushing the leftist rhetoric of colonisation in the language of decolonisation. Although it's not her fault, she's just a youngster who's been brainwashed like many of them have, but we should really push back against the people who have brainwashed her. They are taking over our culture and want to see it completely ruined. These are just my thoughts, however. Do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.